Joining us right now in the Pirate Radio studios is Director of High School and Alumni Relations at East Carolina, Steve Shankweiler. And Coach Shank, welcome in. How you doing, sir?
It's great to be here, Clip.
I appreciate you joining us. And Alex Harp are going to join us for this conversation as well. So, Coach Shank, let's talk about the position that you took over for in 2023, the move from the sidelines, the box, to what you're doing now. First of all, what was the decision? Were you just kind of lost the fire, or
No. Well, there's a lot of things to enter into. I think it was the week of the NC State game. You know, we opened up with NC State, and I had to get my driver's license renewed. And I looked at the date on it, and I said, "This can't be right." And then, you know, it just kind of hit me that, that birthday is pretty significant. And so, we just decided as a family, I said, this was going to be it. And Coach Houston and John Gilbert and everybody over there created this position. And it was something I wanted to do. It was something I went to them about. And they were all in favor of it. And so here we are. I miss the teaching. I miss all that, but I get a dose of football every day.
Yes, sir.
And I don't miss NIL, and I don't miss recruiting and all that. So
a lot of coaches moving on, getting out of college football, probably for those reasons. One more thing on the 2022, it was probably that media day a few weeks before that state game where I talked to you, and I remember asking you about, how do you relate to today's 17, 18-year-old? And you kind of put it to football. That I think one thing you said was good players love to be coached. And that was kind of your mantra there. But even throughout the years, you were able to, I guess, keep up with the times and keep up with today's athlete.
Well, what's interesting is, especially in the job I'm in now, obviously I've had a lot of contact with guys that have played here, back when, way back. And there's you can talk about generational differences, and there are, obviously. But the one thing I will still stand by what you said earlier is that when it comes to the game of football, coaches have something that players want, knowledge, structure, and they want to be successful. And that's all coaches want for the kids. So that common thread, I don't care what age group it is, that's what keeps the game as good as it is.
So as your role now, Director of High School and Alumni Relations, can you walk us through a day or what is on your docket,
Well, basically it's really kind of a three-pronged situation for me. There's so many times that I'm not really involved in recruiting, but the relationship between high school coaches, understanding what's going on at the university level, keeping them up to date of what's happening with we talk about NIL. I try to communicate by email, rule changes, that type of thing, and just trying to keep an open door policy, because there's so much in the recruiting world that goes on now that sometimes the high school coach gets excluded from. So much of it is from a third party. Mm-hmm. And so we try, one of the keys to the success this program has always had, and in line with that, Coach Houston's background as a high school coach when he first started, we just really think it's important to keep those avenues open, make sure the communication's there. Everything from, hey, I need help getting tickets for game day, to, hey, can you get this kid's name to the recruiting office, to, Coach, can you come speak at a banquet, whatever it may be. We just try to keep those relationships solid. And then with the former players, that's turned into be just a challenge in itself. And having been here a long time, off and on, the one thing one of the things I've learned over the years is that when players leave, coaches leave too. And so what happens to a player, it's who do I call? Mm-hmm. Who do I stay in touch with? If I've got a question or I got a concern or I need help, the guy that coached me is gone. It's so volatile that things change so fast. So, I think, East Carolina University has such a great reputation in so many areas, But the one thing that is really known nationally by everybody is our football program and the success that we've had over a long period of time. And those guys, they're our greatest asset. So, Coach Houston felt like that this would be a good chance to try to keep those guys involved.
That's great.
I'm not raising money, but get those guys back, get them involved, make them feel part of the program. Just because your guy's not here anymore, we still want you involved. And so, fortunately or unfortunately, by virtue of my age and my lifespan at this place, I do cover a lot of teams and generations.
Yeah, no doubt.
So.
Reminds me of the late great Jeff Charles, who I could just name any name and he'd have a story about him. I'm like, Jeff, man, how do you know all this stuff? He says, well, Clip, I'm old. But man, we miss him. Talk about a constant. Steve Shankweiler around all those years, but Jeff Charles was really the one constant.
We got here a year apart.
Wow.
See, we were a year apart our first time here.
You mentioned the high school relations. I was thinking about that. Like, every high school coach, wants the best for their player, their kid. And if you go see Nate Connor at Conley twice and only go see Will Bland once, I mean, do you have to like massage? And then this goes back to you recruiting too during your coaching days, but try to keep everybody happy. You can't keep everybody happy. So how do you go about doing all that?
Well, it's virtually impossible.
Right.
It really is because of the internet and because how nationwide recruiting has become. I mean, you can't. It used to be you could say your staff could get to every high school in the state during a calendar year. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's impossible now, and so I don't know that high school coaches expect that like they used to.
Right. Okay.
I think they're a little bit more aware of how big this has gotten, but I think what's important is just writing them notes. Congratulations, big win. Hopefully you'll come to see a game, just invitations, and as long, a motivational saying to put up on their bulletin board, those types of things keeps our name in front of them and their players. And I think that pays off dividends over the long haul.
Coach Steve Shankweiler joining us. So another recruiting question. With baseball, there is travel ball. With basketball, AAU. Volleyball, I got a lot of buddies who have their daughters going to different states playing volleyball. For football, there are camps, of course, but as far as watching games, is it still high school games? I mean, are there?
It's still high school games. Yeah. I mean, there's around the country, there is a group trying to do high level kids in an all-star 6-game season, which that won't last. But what you're talking about in the football sense has been the 7-on-7 tournaments.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
That's grown into a huge business. In fact, this weekend we've got 40 high schools that'll be on campus Saturday.
Beast of the East, right?
Yep, and Beast of the East, and we'll have a tournament, and obviously that doesn't involve the linemen, but it does give kids a chance to almost like in, the summer basketball, the summer baseball,
right.
All the different off-season events that kids can get involved in. This is kind of football's way.
And shout out to at least one lineman, because Alex, didn't you say you went to those camps as the snapper? They brought you along?
Yeah, my high school team.
They included you.
Went to 7-on-7 camps every summer, and they brought me along because I would snap the ball to the quarterback.
Somebody's got to snap the ball, Coach.
Just bend over and snap all day long.
Yeah, that's all I got to do.
Steve Shankweiler joining us inside the Pirate Radio studios. How about, I talked to Coach Houston about this, the kind of hands-on coaches can do now during the summer. It seems like, I guess there was a time, Coach, you can correct me if I'm wrong, where you could pretty much do anything. Then there were rules and regulations, can't have coaches out there. Now it sounds like there's a happy medium maybe where coaches can be around. So how about the work that schools and like East Carolina can go through during this time of year?
Yeah, that you're given during the off season an 8-hour window that you can train players during the off season. It's 20 hours during the season, 8 hours off season, with some discretionary time built in. Well, a couple of years ago, they allowed us to, so it's not always just running and lifting weights, and the kids basically taking, your drills and going out and doing them by themselves. We can go out there with them now. And so what we do is, and I'm sure most schools probably break it down like this, but we go 2 days a week where we basically have a 45, 50-minute session with them on the field. And it's full speed. There's no contact. There's nothing like that. But it's one-on-one coaching and teamwork, and it's a glorified walkthrough. Okay, how fast you walk can be a variable, but it's great for the transition from spring practice to August. Whereas in the past, at the end of spring practice, you couldn't go out there and do anything with the kids until August hit. So there was such a big amount of time where, truthfully, the players just got bored.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really did. At least the way we're doing it now, there's organization, there's meetings, there's a sense of purpose, and I think it was a really good rule change.
Steve Shankweiler joining us. Why offensive line, Coach? I don't know if I've ever asked you about your playing days. Did you play O-line?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
something else
now. Tell us about your glory days on the field. Anything to speak of?
Not a lot. No, I went, actually 2 weekends ago, I went to my 50th college reunion, which is that's even worse than your driver's license being out of date. But so the stories were greatly inflated.
Sure.
Much better than maybe we were. But no, I played a year of on defense and then 3 years on offense, and I was okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
what do they say? Those that can't go teach.
Right.
Okay, well, that's me. I became a coach because
or either talk about it on the radio.
There you go.
Those that can't talk. So did you go right into coaching after your playing days?
Yeah, I got my degree in history and went into high school teaching, coaching, and did that for several years, and then was very fortunate to get a head high school job at a very young age, and good players, and we won the state championship, and I got into college coaching after that.
Yeah, and some, people have aspirations. They want to be in the NFL. They want to be in the college. Some just want to go high school and coach like that. So what were kind of your goals when you got into it? Did you even have an end game for yourself?
My goals before I graduated were not to go into teaching and coaching necessarily. I had plans to go to grad school in another arena. But, I took a couple education classes, kind of liked it, Patty and I were married at the time, and we had our first youngin', and all of a sudden the bills had to be paid. And
necessity.
So we went and did that, and it turned out to be really and I'll say this, I've never coached at the NFL level, all right, but there's, in my mind, even where I'm sitting today, there's not much more exciting adventure than to be on a Friday night high school football field with the stands full. I think that is the best, maybe the best time I've ever had is doing that.
Yeah.
So
there is something about it, playing for your
no
community
question.
and everybody in the stands,
Right.
and it is pretty cool. Steve Shankweiler joining us inside the Pirate Radio studios. Shirley, let's get a break. Coach Shank, can you hang out one more segment?
we'll go.
All
Let's
right,
go.
we'll talk some more with Steve Shankweiler, Early Roads, Alex Harper here on a Friday, and Steve Shankweiler joining us in the Pirate Radio studios. Pirate fans, coming up Thursday, June 20th at Down on Main Street. The ECU football Pirates will be there at 6 o'clock. We've got the offensive line versus the defensive line in a wing-eating contest. It'll be Will Coates, Trey Hardison, Cam Durant for the offense, Preston Carr, Zion Wilson, Logan Wright for the D-line. Who will win the wing championship? Stop by Down on Main Street and find out coming up on Thursday. Down on Main Street in historic downtown Washington. Pirates supporting Pirates. Coach Shank, you're a little biased, but you gonna go with your O-line guys here?
Well, I've coached all those guys, and we moved Zion back to defense, and I coached him, so I got a pretty good feeling. I know that their potential to inhale food will be tough to beat.
Yes, sir. That'll be entertaining. Got the wing eating contest going on Thursday. We had these big fellas in here yesterday, and a fun group to talk to. What's the biggest misconception about a no lineman, Coach? I mean, that they're just like big, dumb Neanderthals. I always hear like the O linemen are some of the smartest guys on the field.
You know, it's a great question. Over the years, I've always enjoyed coaching those kids because for the most part, now there's always a knucklehead, but for the most part, they're pretty good students. They have a camaraderie that is unlike any other position group.
Big team guys, right?
And they're just great kids. And, you know, obviously they're big and they like to eat and they like to have a good time. But I think people would be surprised at really how athletic they are and how most of them really care about their fitness and all that. And one of the things you got to remember about that position, there's no other position in sport like it. They're the only, in every other sport, but they're the only position that doesn't see the object of the game. They don't touch the object of the game, okay?
Right.
Okay, and we ask them to move a 300-pound person against his will. So, you know, it takes such an unusual kid to play that.
Sure.
You know, baseball, everybody gets to swing. Basketball, everybody gets to shoot it,
yeah.
right? But in football, those guys are not part of that. And when the ball's snapped, they don't ever see where the object of the game. They assume where it's going.
Right. Yeah.
You know, you hope so, but it usually takes a different kind of cat to play that.
He just described that like it was art.
That was,
and it
beautiful.
is.
It is.
That was beautiful. I can't imagine.
I'm glad you said something.
Hey, Alex, welcome to the show.
Especially something like that. Very good.
I think Alex is intimidating.
I wonder if the microphones picked up what you said to me as we were going to commercial break. That was funny.
They said, "Hey, do you talk?" So, yeah, I can't imagine Steve Shankweiler coaching diva wide receivers. That would have been interesting.
It would have been much harder for me probably than them. I don't know, but
yeah, you mentioned every now and then you get some knuckleheads, and when you do, you got to set them straight. And Alex told us that you even set him straight one time on the sidelines. And what I found so interesting is it's something Alex will never forget, getting dressed down by Steve Shankweiler, and something you've done 100, 200,000 times, you'll never remember it. So it's kind of interesting in that regard.
I think he only knows about it because I've brought it up to him.
Right. Yeah.
Like I knew who Coach Shank was before I even started playing in college football. He's an East Carolina legend.
Sure. And
to have the privilege to play football here at ECU and having Coach Shank on the staff while I was there was so cool. And then, you know, but he doesn't coach my position. Being the O-line coach, they usually have the responsibility of also being in charge of field goal. And so, yeah, Memphis 2022, I got chewed out by Coach Shank.
So what happened?
And as soon as that was over, I was like, that was awesome.
You went to the sidelines.
Really cool.
What happened?
So my side of the story is I don't even know how the situation occurred. I think Coach Shank was asking some guys on the field goal. Maybe we got some interior pressure. And Coach Shank came up to me and he asked, like, are they hitting you? Like the Memphis D lineman, which is supposed to be a penalty, even though it almost never gets called. And my answer was no, but I didn't, for some reason in my head, couldn't calculate like why he was even asking that. So I just said, I don't think so. He was so mad that I didn't give him a yes or no answer, which is valid. He is a very busy guy and has got important things to tend to, and he's talking to the long snapper on the field goal team if they're hitting me, and I couldn't give him a straight answer.
So he tried to expedite your answer after that, I guess.
I guess that tells me when you go out there to play, you're always in a state of shock. You don't know if a 300-pound person's hitting you or not.
Yeah, are you just that strong, Alex?
What it probably was, one of the guys next to you was probably not doing his job. And he said, Coach, the official's not calling it. They're going over the top of our snapper.
So I got thrown under the bus, but like not in a bad way.
Correct.
They were deflecting.
Their air onto you. So,
yeah, and I know who both of the guards were on that team. I'm not going to say that on air.
Okay.
But
you got to know, I guess, when to hold them and when to fold them, Coach. So a good chewing out happens all the time on the football field. But do you know each and every person individually? Like, I can really get after this guy, or maybe I should lighten up on this guy, or do you treat them all the same?
Well, pardon me, I guess you got to be judicious in how you handle, certain kids. Obviously, you have a standard, okay, and there's different ways to get somebody to reach that standard. Mm-hmm. Some of them don't respond to that, right? Some of them do, and I think probably early on you got to figure out what's the best way to teach that student, and every student's taught differently. So,
can I ask you an impossible question? Like, when I talk about ECU offensive linemen that you've coached, like, who are the guys that immediately pop into your brain? Is that too tough for you? Because there's some awesome names.
There have been some great ones. Really, that's a hard one. You think of. I go way back, and you think of the guys that, that came in the 87, 88, 89, that group of kids there, Grant Lowe's, Chad Martins, Kyle Condry, Stuart Southall, those guys were probably playing a schedule way above what they should have, and yet they were very competitive. You think about the great Tom Scott, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago. He replaced. He didn't replace, but when the greatest, one of the greatest players to ever play in the NFL, for the Cincinnati Bengals, when he retired, Tom Scott steps in.
Was that Munoz?
Yeah,
Anthony Munoz.
And so, and Tom was just such a story in himself, but obviously his health issues, got the best of him. But he was so talented and such a great story about where he came from to where he was blessed to go. But I could go. I can talk forever. There's been, again, I think it's the nature of the position that each kid has a story, and each kid, for the most part, have just been really great men and great guys to be around. And that's one of the fun parts of the job I have now, is I get to spend time communicating with a lot of them.
Steve Shankweiler joining us, Pirate Radio Studios. Alex, you got any questions for Coach?
Yeah, I was going to kind of continue off of your question. Do you have any season that sticks out to you as being maybe the most memorable or your favorite season that you coach? I maybe have an idea of an answer, but I kind of want to hear your opinion first.
Well, any year that we beat NC State was a great season. Okay, so my first game I ever coached here, we beat them 32-14. So that was a lot of fun.
I should have been on that list.
You should have been there, yeah. But, obviously everybody would naturally say the Peach Bowl. I think obviously that was really special. You got the two conference championship teams back to back was really special. I think there was also some teams along the way that probably overachieved, that you have a special spot, I look back to, just in your lifetime here, the team that that went to the Military Bowl. We overcame a lot of things, and then the guys of the year before having to fight through the COVID year. It was the record doesn't indicate it, but there was just so many great examples of what football is all about, and the way young men can hang together and fight through adversity. Those are the kind of the years that stick out in my mind as much as bowl wins. Those bowl games are great, and obviously that's what you strive for. But there's so much more than just a season, so much more than just a record. But one of the I can say this, and it's been this way everywhere I've coached. But the 5-year spans I've coached here have been the most rewarding, because of the kind of kid that we get to come here, and the kind of kid that is got built in his DNA that I'm going to be better. I'm going to be better than what everybody thinks I'm going to be. I'm going to overachieve, and that's just the nature of this university. We're going to overachieve, and we're going to show you. We're going to prove something, and that's what has made coaching fun here. Even in the hard years, I'm not really answering your question specifically, but I'd kind of put everybody in that same category.
No doubt. You remember the guys in the locker room and the moments on the field more than, say, winning the 2022 Birmingham Bowl?
I promise you, I cannot. I'm serious. I bet I couldn't nail this. The last year I coached, 22. Okay. I bet I can tell you 2 scores. You don't remember the scores,
right? Mm-hmm.
You remember the relationships you have, and like you said, the locker room. I've said this to guys, groups of guys I've coached over the years. The locker room is the most important thing there is in football. And we've gotten rid of the huddle. It used to be the huddle, but the locker room is where it's all about, and those relationships last forever. Those scores, yeah. I mean, I guess we won. I think I remember, but you remember those relationships and those moments, like getting your tail chewed out.
I'll never forget that.
That's right. You remember those.
Never
things.
forget it.
Those are that's the value of playing football.
Coach Shane, we talk about the 08-09 championships a lot because Greg Hudson joins us on Thursdays, and just talking about the staff that Skip Holtz had, that had to lead to a lot of the success because he talks about how tight you were. Also, we've had Brandon Simmons, Dakota Marshall, Scotty Robinson, and Brett Hickman, who was a coach then. Mm-hmm. And they've made Coach Hud cry just about every time they come on because the bond is still there. And I don't know, it seems like just a pretty special time.
Well, I'd take it. I mentioned this earlier, but I'll take it a step beyond that. If you can picture what I get to do every day, like today, I send out a newsletter with pictures and stuff like that every month to about 1,600 emails, former players, and just having conversation and remember, and those connections, and the feeling like I'm sure Hud's mentioned, just when you win a championship, it's huge. It's huge. But what's huge is years later, those relationships are still intact, and you treasure those relationships and the successes that your players have after football.
Right.
Because the one thing we have, the one thing Alex and I have in common, we're all going to be ex-football players someday. And you take those relationships and the meaning of the game with you, and that doesn't disappear. That never disappears. It's even better if there's a ring attached to it, okay? But the what Greg's talking about, and what I'm talking about is just so special.
We heard it. Dakota, he's hauling dirt.
Right.
He's got a very successful business, and he's talking about how he takes things he learned from his coaches into that business. Scotty went into law enforcement. Now he's doing something with mental health, and said that the lessons he learned he's using today. So it is pretty cool.
Well, I mentioned I went to my college reunion, and I went by, my coach is still living, and I went by to see him, and just walking in the door, the memories and the relationships and the those things come immediately rushing right back to you, and it's just a special deal.
Yeah. Well, Coach, 2-10 last year. A lot of optimism with a lot of overhauls on the offensive side of the ball. Blake Harrell's defense. Blake Harrell's back, and a lot of those players, especially that D-line, is back. We talked to Siobhan. You'll hear that interview. We like that side of the ball. We expecting some better results this year?
I don't think there's any question. I think last year was an aberration. That there were so many things that factor into that. You had I guess four offensive coaches either retire or leave. Okay,
a couple, right? What, during spring ball or right before spring ball? Kind of late,
right? And then you've got, except for 2 players, and one of them, and both of them didn't go through spring practice. You have 2 guys that were coming back that had started. The rest of them were all brand new. Your quarterback's brand new. Everybody's brand new. And, it just was and then you open up with a national champion.
Yeah.
I mean, so and in every game, if you go back and look at it in the fourth quarter, it's within 7-8 points in every game. And so, so many of those games, one play would have gone another way. It's a totally different story. So I think in knowing the history of this place and knowing, the kind of guy Coach Houston is, that's going to get back to where it should be. I'm really excited about the talent level we've brought in on offense at the skill positions, the receivers, the quarterbacks. I think that's going to make a huge difference. Our tight end's going to make a huge difference. So I would think that, with most of the defense back, they've shored up a couple issues over there that, you got to feel really good about. Siobhan, you got to feel really good about our linebacker core, and obviously our D-line is very, very experienced. So it's a lot of optimism running around over there right now.
Good. That's good to hear. Reasons to be excited about Pirate football.
And we got our long snapper back.
A-Harp is ready to go.
Year 6. Let's do it.
One last ride for Alex Harper. All right, Coach Shay, thank you so much for joining us, man. That was
Thanks
fun.
for having me.
Enjoyed it, and we'll do it again down the road. But have a good summer, and man, you are the guy to have in your position. I'm a big ECU basketball fan, and I feel like every year it's a different team. There's no program. ECU baseball, there's a great program. The guys come around, and I feel like football is that same way, and that's awesome that you're connecting everybody. So keep up the good work.